Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently these days you're not allowed to say ladies and gentlemen, so well, I'm actually going to insist on saying ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is an evening with Colin Bird, Executive Chairman at Xtract Resources. I think I've interviewed him about 50 times, maybe more. I shudder to think how many times I've interviewed him, so I know him quite well over the years, which is a plus. All the various listed companies that he's got, but tonight's all about Xtract Resources, which at the moment is perhaps the most exciting in its own way. The evening will consist of an initial 10 minutes or so of the thoughts of Chairman Bird from his notes. Then he will run through quickly a presentation. Obviously, we don't want to have any sort of death by PowerPoint type of situation, so he'll run through it quickly, with the salient points. If you want, if it's too fast for you, which it may be, then just ask for an email of the PowerPoint. I'm sure Walty will sort you out. That's probably the best way of getting the evening to move along. And then after the PowerPoint, then hopefully there'll be some questions and comments, and Colin or myself will try and answer them, but mostly Colin, obviously. So over to Colin Bird.
Thank you.
So, welcome everybody, and I'm loud enough at the back there, that's good. Welcome everybody, it's nice to see some old friends and I guess hopefully some new ones as well. People who own shares, people who might own shares. And I've decided today really to talk copper, because I guess everybody's a little worried about the share price. Why isn't it moving? Good results, great results, and yet we seem static. I don't think we are static. We're just building. Rocket ships come down. This building I actually quite enjoy. And probably when we went to 9p, we got ahead of ourselves anyway. And the junior market's got a way of doing that, hasn't it, Zak? And of course, talking there to Zak, there's this. Thank you, Zak, for arranging this, and Walty for all that you put into to get the folks together. I do appreciate you coming, and it's good to shake hands. I haven't done that for 18 months. That was something quite new. I enjoyed that, and we'll have time for that later on as well. So I'm going to talk copper. I'm going to talk about Xtract, and obviously address questions. This evening really is all about Xtract and copper, but of course there are other assets, other companies within our stable. And it would be wrong not to take the opportunity to talk about them. But on the basis that we're going to put that on the Xtract site, we'll turn the television off, so turn off that and have a free-for-all. I believe, and I've been preaching since 2017, that copper's coming, and boy, is copper coming. I've also been preaching since the start of this year that it's the day of the small miner. I remember, back in the early parts, 2000, that there were small mines and listed mines and private entities. They produced 4,000 tons of copper a year, 6,000, 10,000 tons of copper a year. And there was the mid-caps who probably got a single project, open cut, underground, or whatever. They got wiped out in 2012, and the small miner didn't get past 206. We're now sat where everybody's preaching about the demand for copper, the demand of copper. And quite frankly, nobody knows where that copper is going to come from. We're all dreaming, we're all talking, and we live in the most uncertain and unclear world I've ever lived in my life. We've got stock markets racing along. You've got the daft statement, I've never heard anything quite so daft. Well, I'm investing in equities because where else can I put my money? How daft is that? We've got a world which is a total disconnect, and yet we're dying for markets to go up. Preaching, the NGOs are preaching about clean air, we're preaching about this new planet, not thought through. Politicians, they'll just play to the dream and play to the audience, not thought through either. So, again, let's stop where we are, and what are we looking at? We're looking at Xtract Resources, we're looking at Australia. That's a great start. Chile. 38% of the world's copper comes from Chile. It's in disarray. I don't know who in the audience has been to Santiago, the most beautiful city in the world. 5 minutes out of there, 5 miles out of there, is shanty towns which South Africa would be ashamed of. The money didn't get to the people. The money didn't get to the people. And the days are gone. The days are gone where you can just mislead the people and the money never makes it to them. They're not going to have that today. We're a very rich society, very few very rich, and most of us very poor. Those days are finished. So, talking about copper, and you know, I've talked about that disconnect of the politicians, and we fought wars about oil, and I firmly believe that we'll fight wars for copper. I certainly hope we don't, but I believe we might. Why are the Chinese going to Afghanistan? Are they going to Afghanistan before they like the Taliban? Not on your life are they going to Afghanistan to make friends. They want that copper. Why are they in the funny parts of Africa? Because they want to get their hands on the copper. It's tomorrow's oil. And then I just want to sober all of us up before we get really excited and all go running out and talking about today's copper price going through 10,000 again. Is you've got politicians and NGOs and little Greta telling us all by 2030 that every car will be electrified and bus. You know, it's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. There are 299 million motor cars in America. There's 1 million of them electrified. Now you tell me how they're going to do that by 2025, 2026. Just doesn't make sense. You can't do it. And take it across the board on electricity and the generation. And I might suggest to you, and I'm not trying to knock Xtract down, but those investments, those guys and girls who want a contrarian investment, look at coal. Look at coal. They're saying it's finished. Look at oil. It's finished. Absolute nonsense. How can you, in the space of 10 years, destroy all of that? You can't. And if you've got a nice coal mine in a good jurisdiction, it is literally an ATM. And Fidelity don't invest in it. M&G don't invest in it. All of the major institutions won't invest in it. So people are buying coal mines now at absolute knockdown prices. So that transition must make us all think life is not quite as simple as we'd like it to be. Far from it. It just can't be done. And then people say, "Oh, will copper go to $1,500? Will it 15,000? Will it go to 20,000?" I for one really don't care, because we trade copper in dollars. Just look what's happening to the dollar. What does that mean to anybody? You know, what does that really mean to anybody? But the pure and simple fact, I don't care where it goes, because it has to go up. We're going to face the biggest episode of inflation that mankind's ever seen, and quite frankly, the copper is not available. So it's not like saying, "Oh well, the copper price goes up, that'll bring more copper on stream." Yes, it will assist my small mine, 5,000 to 7,000 tons a year, but we're actually talking about a need to grow this by 20 million tons. So you don't make much of a dent with 5,000 tons into 20 million and growing like wildfire. So think about it. You need one Escondida every year, and then back to Chile. If you drill a successful drill hole in Chile, and it's successful and you like what you see, 14 years later you might have a mine. That requirement isn't in the middle of the 2030s. That requirement is 2023. It's going to start to hurt, and it's going to start to hurt big. So again, there's just not the copper, and if the price goes up, I'm afraid you can't bring much new capacity on, and you can't, what's even more important, you can't bring new big capacity on. So the majors this time round have got it wrong. They really have peed on their own chips. It really have got it wrong. It's they've essentially got it so wrong it can't be true. Only a few of them can work these new porphyries, and nobody's got the new porphyries. They were all canned 7 or 8 years ago. So the junior, who is sitting on copper, is in a great space. And this particular junior, Colin, is quite frankly sitting in a very good space, because we forecasted copper, and now we're forecasting the small miner. So whichever end of the copper scale, the copper story you're looking at, we're positioned. So if you want to call option to copper, just look at our companies. And I was going to say this one in particular, but no, just look at our companies. This is just the big example. And it's not about electric vehicles, it's all about electric vehicles. It's about wind farms, developing country infrastructure. And those fires in California a couple of years ago, the copper cables fell down. That's what set fire to that town, what burnt down. The infrastructure in the States is finished, and it is in a lot of developed countries, and it's got to be replaced. Urban development, we're looking at billions of more people moving to cities. Doesn't happen again. They've got to be addressed. Emerging countries, they're all going to want their share of the copper. They're all going to want the cell phones, their fridges, their cars. So, you know, it's quite frankly, when you look at the demand, it's so sobering. It's so sobering, it really can't be true, but it is. And then we get Goldman Sachs, the likes of Goldman Sachs and Morgan Grenfell, JP Morgan, talking about the super cycle. Now, a super cycle has got its own definition, but I don't like the word cycle because, you know, cycle almost talks about a commodity, a company, a sector, having its space, having its day in the sun. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. We are talking about the Industrial Revolution. We're talking about copper replacing hydrocarbons. We're talking about the new metals. And we're talking about one of the biggest transformations mankind has ever seen at the back end, hopefully the back end, of a major pandemic. We are in certain times with a lot of dreamboats around in the name of politicians and the name of NGOs. We're in a different space, a different world, and I, for one, am glad we're in the copper, but I, for another, am quite fearful of what tomorrow will bring us all. I could go on. I've got a few notes here, but I won't. I'll go into the presentation now. I was going to go straight into the presentation, but that's not straight. Why have I gone on about copper? I've gone on about copper because I passionately believe in it. This project 15 years ago might not have had a space, but where we sit now, this project is one of the leaders in the world and growing, and is in the right place to be the right project. And I don't really care whether the share price is 4p or 7p or 8p now. I do know that the more we do, the better it gets, and the better it gets, the more it'll be worth, and the more it will find its position in tomorrow's copper world. And that's essentially where we are. So let's see if I can drive this. That's it there. You've all read that. The company portfolio is extending the signature of our major world-class porphyry project located in New South Wales, Australia. You know, that's a major statement in its own right. New South Wales, Australia, peace, tranquility. And the Australians, you can't win everything. But, you know, it's a wonderful place to be. They've got their own idea and their own way of doing things. But good engineers, very positive engineers. And we're very lucky because in the middle of a pandemic, we've had to trust to the likes of Jeremy Reed and Dr. Quinton Hills, who quite frankly are superb engineers and scientists, if you like, in their own rights. And we've had nothing but good guidance, good support, and good management of the budget. So that's great. Operating small-scale alluvial and primary gold deposits in Manica, that's where it all started. Well, it all started with this gold mine, I suppose, in Chepica in Latin America. But Manica was always there. And after that sort of setback, the gold deposits, the alluvial deposits were useful. They were nowhere near as useful as I hoped they would be. And today's results, you know, we published today's results where 1.5 times more gold was produced in September than in any month since we started the operation. Straightforward criticism of Colin. Colin's fixed it for this presentation. I wish I could. I wish I was that smart. No, we didn't fix it. What it shows is how random alluvials are. And next month might be the same, and next month might be worse. But you tell me, you know, God put the gold in there, we'll get what we get. And that's the size of it. But it couldn't have come at a better time. And the hard rock deposit with Guy Fawkes, we had a bit of a setback there, in as much as we were very surprised how deep the artisanal informal miners had gone. And so we had to actually go much deeper, and we're currently mining towards the reef, and their production is not up to scratch yet, but I think when we do get it going, it'll be quite meaningful. And then the Fairbride project, they're going great guns now. Nobody enjoyed the rains, nobody enjoyed COVID-19, obviously. It set them back, it set us back, and the alluvials, you know, there's some not good stories to tell about the alluvials. I mean, the Chinese, just basically the operators, sending people back to China on a regular basis. There were deaths with the pandemic. You've also, you know, there's no help for you in Manica. It's miles from anywhere. So, you know, you have all of those problems, and quite frankly, they got scared, and a lot of them went home and didn't want to come back. But now we're in full swing. And then, of course, we're in our small back-to-buy day of the small miner. We're in Zambia with our projects there. The Eureka project is looking very encouraging. Kalengwa, we've only got a small position there, but again, it's challenged by position and power. But nonetheless, should be a contributor to our cash flow, and a good contributor at that. Now then, just again, I'm going to go through these slides fairly fast now because I don't want to bore you to tears, and I've done the copper bit, but you know, copper is the third best conductor. What's the first two? I expected that question. I know the bulletin boards now that whatever I say, I'm going to be challenged. So first and two are gold and silver, and possibly aluminium comes just behind copper. Solar and wind, they require 4 to 12 times more copper per kilowatt. And electric vehicles use up to 4 times more copper. And as I say, we're looking for that cleaner environment, which again is, will we get it as fast as we want? I don't know. This is too small for you, but essentially we go from gasoline at 20 kilograms of copper up to the top one, which is the full Monty, if you like, 163 kilograms. A bus uses 16 times more. 16 times more. Think about it. This is the growth in solar and wind energy, which is projected to increase by 56% by 2027 over 2018. Again, tremendous growth. Tremendous growth. So really, to go clean, we've got to get more copper. And you know, another daft question. How much copper does a new copper mine want? Think of those ball mills. Think of those miles and miles of cabling. How much copper does a copper mine want? Mind-boggling what mankind has set itself to do. It's mind-boggling. And if you're in the right space, I'm going to keep saying it, if you're in the right space and you've got a call option to copper, in 2023, anybody in this room who's a shareholder of the various companies will be very glad they are, because there will be no copper to find. So I'll keep saying it. Look at that. There's a 380. We all love the 380. What a wonderful aeroplane it is, if anybody's been fortunate enough to fly on it. The new wind farms now, those propellers, those arms, those you know, what pick up the wind there, they're actually bigger than the 380. And they're putting those units, they're starting introducing those units now by 2028. Just think of the size of these things, how high they are. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So there's a 5 million, this is a prediction which I think is probably optimistic, if anything, but we're talking being light of about 6 million tons of copper by 2030. Well, we do 20 at the moment, and so that's a staggering fact. But after what I put to you, the pandemic basically has made mankind again realize just how clean this planet can be. When nobody was going to work, nobody used vehicles, nobody went out to industry, everything was slowed down, we realized what a clean planet could be. So anything you see there, quite frankly, is pessimistic, and the optimistic case, quite frankly, I don't know. But for me, it's not doable. If you throw in the weight of the small mine, the big mine, the mines which are currently in production, it isn't doable. So people say the price is going to go up. They're going to be fighting like dogs for copper. They really are. And it's put to me the other day that there'll be several levels of copper. They're talking, the Goldman Sachs, the experts, Goldman Sachs. And you'll have carbon clean copper. So if it's produced in Australia, if it's basically got the right vehicles to do it, if it's signature corporate governance, yes, you know, the total signature is good, that copper will get a premium over other copper. How daft is that? When you've not got enough copper, how can you be selective? You know, you can only be selective on your spec when you're in oversupply. So, you know, these guys can get paid $500,000 a year just to turn up in New York and come out with a daft statement like that. And I'm glad I'm from the North and simple, because, you know, quite frankly, it's a daft statement to say there'll be a premium for carbon clean copper when you can't get enough. Spec says that I just need copper. We need copper. The world needs copper. So again, same story. This is, now we're going to get into porphyries. We're going to get into the meat of Xtract. And so that blue is the porphyry contribution as we go along through the years. And you can see again that porphyries, by definition, by the very occurrence, not by what we'd sooner work or we wouldn't like to work, but just by pure availability to work, porphyries are tomorrow's metal, supplier of metal, of copper. And so again, big is going to be beautiful. And you can get the word mining, open the window and throw it out. Because these aren't mines. They're muck shifting projects. They're civil engineering. There's more civil engineering in today's mine than there is mining. You're not making fancy predictions on which way the ore body dips and thickness of the ore body, entries and stoping and all of that. You really have got to be able to move as much muck as you can, and it's got to be relatively easy to process. And that's where we are. And porphyries, fortunately, fit that story. But unfortunately, a lot of them are in Chile. And I talked about the social problems. And even BHP lost the appetite to dig 600 meters before they got to 0.42 and spend $1.5 billion of pre-strip just to get at the ore body. That even frightened BHP. So the porphyry contribution is going to be big. And what have we got at Xtract? We've got a porphyry. What sits on surface. I mean, if that is it there, a porphyry generally dips into the ground like that. So what does it do? By definition, it defeats itself because you gain ground too fast and you can't make an open pit. Our porphyry lies on its side. Our porphyry lies on its side. And that's a big plus for us because ours doesn't gain depth as fast as the standard porphyry around the world. So there's just a picture of some of our ore there, and there's the classic porphyry system, and you can see, I think I've lost it now. Well, yeah, let's use the cursor. There it is. There we go. That you can see that there's the center core, and that's what we're aiming at, this center core where it appears to be high grade, and we've dipped it on its side, so we're going to get more of it than you would normally. Now then, and I'm going to throw out a figure, and forward-looking statements aren't what the market likes, but there we sit, that top star at 71 million tons. There's where we're so happy with this near surface, near surface being 600 meters deep. But you'll see from some of those boreholes, I don't know if everybody noticed, but some of them start at 11 meters, start at 20 meters, 25 meters. So it does start near surface. And so we've got a good chance of getting 500 million tons. 500 million tons, do it yourself, that's an awful lot of rock. But that's what we're shooting at. 20 drill holes, everyone's got a coconut. Quite frankly, there's not a dud in the old portfolios of drill holes. Phase 1, everybody wanted to break into tears when we put out the assay results. We were shooting into space, we'd not got a clue. We put that first one down the plunge, and then we drilled them. We didn't know where we were nicking the side of the ore body, of the porphyry. Don't talk ore body, let's talk porphyry. We didn't know whether we were in the guts of the porphyry. We don't know what controlled the grade. but we did our best shot. You won't know how much we learned. We learned to stack in that phase one. We really did. And then on the left-hand side there, this is the trouble with this every time I do it, but that graph there, that's quite a meaningful graph. That shows how over the years, not so many years. I think, where does the graph start? What year does it start? Where does it start?
1910.
Now, the way the grade has gone down, 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 down. So as the porphyries take more and more dominance in the supply of copper, so does the grade deteriorate. So 0.4 is going to be the standard, not the exception. I mean, if you halfway up, if you go back to 1975, 1980, they'd think you were daft if you talked about, mining 0.4. Not anymore. That's where the ore bodies are, and that's the porphyries. That's the porphyries. There's where most of the porphyries sit in the world. They're finding that magmatic arc setting. We've only just mentioned the Cadia. Cadia is the big mine near us being 70 kilometers, and I guess in geological terms that's near us. And they produced, I think last year, they were producing gold at $106 an ounce and copper at $1.74. Printing money. I mean, good Lord, what a wonderful place to be. 3 weeks ago, I went past the Attic mine in Sweden, and they mined 40 million ton at 0.22 and made $350 million profit for the shareholders in 1 year. So don't talk to me about, Zach, don't talk to me about 0.545 being low grade. We've got loads of that, and we're not even putting it in today's story. It's not in today's story, but I'll get to it, and it will be in today's story. Not satisfied, and I said to you, how much copper does a copper mine need to get going? And they're not exempt either. Everything now is, in Australia, you don't hurt people in mines, underground or surface. You don't hurt them anymore. Those days are done too. Person doesn't go to work and come, you go to the mortuary to identify them. Those days, we don't like it anymore. Mining is a risky business, but they sort of, it's all right if a few people get killed. I'm afraid we don't live in that sort of world anymore. So in Sweden, I was in Sweden at that Kiruna mine. Everything's remote. You drive the vehicles, you drive them remotely. Nobody goes anywhere near where the place might collapse. The machines have got their own mind. They can do the things themselves. Increased productivity, increased efficiency, health and safety I've talked about, reduced wear and tear on these machines, maintenance schedules, so much more advanced. And you're looking to get carbon neutral mining. As I've said, this is the mismatch and this is the fight. On the one hand, we want carbon neutral mining. On the other hand, we want as much copper as we can get. Virtually incompatible. The stories are virtually incompatible, and I don't know how they're going to be sorted. I really don't know how it's going to be sorted out. There you are. This is the biggest mine in the world, one of the biggest, the Bolliton Attic mine, the one I've just mentioned. And I sit Wembley Stadium just in the corner there. And I've been worried, when I talk about Xtract, I've been worried that the shareholders think, as you drive past the field, there's a big hole that Xtract going to build. That's not the case. These mines started 50, the good porphyry is going to last 70 to 100 years. These are massive excavations. And then we've got let me just get that there. There we've got the Burj Khalifa. That one is in the, I think it's the next one. Yeah, there's Burj Khalifa in the Bingham Canyon mine. We all know the Burj Khalifa, the whopping great building in Dubai, just completely lost in the grand scheme of things. These mines are almost beyond belief. You've got to see them to believe them, and then you don't believe them. They are huge, absolutely huge. Australia. Why are we in Australia? Well, it speaks for itself. It's the 6th biggest country in the world for production. We all know it's a democracy. We all know they've got their own way of doing things. But you can get mines, and do get mines permitted in Australia. and they're very successful mines at that, and they're ranked number 14 in the world for political stability. We've got 100% earning for the Bushranger project. It's very, very large, as it keeps going on about. It's got 71 million tonnes at 0.44, and we know that it's open down plunge because we've been there. We got to 1100 metres and still going, and we now know that it works. It's near surface, and we now know. And the best thing we ever did was to do our geophysics, because we knew we couldn't carry on like that. We got lucky in phase one. Everyone, as I say, every hole got a coconut, but that, we'll call it good judgment, but it was a lot of good luck as well. A lot of good luck. So we did these geophysics, and not the generally geophysics in conductivity and that are confined to about 200, 250 metres. You're lucky. This geophysics could see into the ground 1,500 metres. They say, again, I think about 1,000 metres, but gee whiz, what an advance in technology! And there are people now, you know, Robert Friedland going around. He's got a company. He's the most successful guy in this business. He actually was smart enough 15 years ago to grab a business and to develop the geophysics. And he can look in the ground, and we've used the same technologies as we could really look into the ground. And we're happy with the geophysics that we've used, and it pointed us to quite a few targets. But just to get a little bit technical, and I promised Zak I wouldn't get over technical. And I'm a miner, by the way, not a geologist, so you know, I guess I'm one chapter in front than most of the folks in the room, but that's about my limit. But in association with the chalcopyrite, the copper-bearing mineral there, is pyrrhotite. Now, pyrrhotite is an iron sulfide, but it's magnetic. And so we thought maybe, just maybe, if what we noticed in the cores is that the pyrrhotite association with the chalcopyrite led to the better grades. So why don't we get a drone and then fly this thing to see where we're going to get the magnetic, if we're going to get a magnetic signature. And then the next question was, is it going to be subtle enough? Is it going to be so much noise? You know, it's not subtle enough to pick up the place. And I'm pleased to say it was subtle enough. And so now X does mark the spot. We've got the combination of low resistivity. We know where the high chargeability is. That's no use to anybody. That's pyrite. But we've got the low resistivity, and we've got the magnetic signature, and X marks the spot. It really does. And I am so excited and fearful of the next round of drilling, where we really test that really big one on the southeast. Because quite frankly, we've got enough on our plate now. But if that one comes in, we really are in a very, very nice. Very, very nice place. There you are. That's the various disposition of the various mines around the Lachlan Fold. You'll see there's in some places the dominance of gold against copper. Some places the dominance of copper against gold. Other places molybdenum plays its role. It didn't look like our project contained much gold, but of course we produced some decent results, quite decent results in our last announcement on hole number 7, which had got gold values. I keep getting beaten up, where's the gold, where's the gold? I'll be honest with you. Gold and copper in association can bring you processing problems. So unless that gold is free and drops out, you're not necessarily an happy bunny. You know, you can talk about copper equivalent, you can gross it up, but they can sometimes be very, very bad bedfellows, copper and gold. So I'm not at all worried. So if it comes out, it comes out. It's nice to have a gold as a byproduct, and let's hope it's free milling. And we did find one run of decent gold in association with chalcopyrite and pyrrhotite, but we also found, I think in hole 8, one run which we couldn't figure out at all. It was actually just gold dominant with very little copper, and that we didn't expect. So I'm not embarrassed, and I don't apologize for the fact we're still learning too. And again, when you read the bulletin boards and you get beaten up every so often, we should share the journey, because journey it is, and every porphyry is unique, and we're learning just like you're learning. And I'm on that same subject, talking about beating up, I must also congratulate we've got some technical contributors to our site who are very good, extremely good, and they're one in front of the ball. I just don't quite know how. With the information they've got, they're able to make the predictions they make. It'd be wrong to mention one particular contributor to our bulletin board, but boy, he's good. And I'm so grateful for that, because, you know, I'm always going to defend myself. I'm always going to say, retrospectively, this is this and this is that. But for somebody to do it externally is good for me, and it's good for the company, and it's good for the shareholders. Good for the shareholders. I think we've probably done what we've got to do. There it is. There's that geophysics. And you know, you see the conglomeration of where we are on racecourse there. But look at that one, you know, crikey. Look at the size of it. And the geophysics is a hell of a lot better than racecourse. Then we've got one down there, and then 7 kilometres down here, we've got the foot rot. And the nomad is asking us, you've got to change the name of foot rot. He said, that's not very nice. I said, well, change your name and change your look, so we're not going to do that. Foot rot it is. And you say, well, let's fire all straight into that red. Disaster. Absolute disaster if we did that. Because that's what you would have done 10 years ago. What would you have done? You'd have got a stream of really brilliant looking stuff come up the drill hole. It had all been pyrite. And who wants pyrite, you know? Now, within that subtle big red area, there's low resistivity, and there's the magnetics on top, which suggests we know where the pyrite is, and that's where we'll be firing the holes. And like I say, with some trepidation and some excitement, that's not very far away. And if we start reporting good grades, good values in this stuff, I don't know what the racecourse is going to be. It's much bigger than anybody could have imagined, because I can honestly say now that as we stand, this lot here, in this area, for this open pit, puts Xtract on the world-class scale for our mine. And this hasn't even come into the figuring. And we're seeing peaks. We're seeing, as we go along the boreholes, we're seeing the odd, we're nicking a porphyry here and there. It really is, we are learning. We are still learning. But about the only thing I can say with certainty, we've got a big one. How big it is, I don't know. Isn't that lovely, that great big geophysics? Where have you seen geophysics like that? There's the old machine there, and then there's the guy. Looks like he's eating the core, but he's actually looking at it with his little glass. And there's the porphyry as we stand, a nice little picture of it showing the crown. It looks like a root canal, doesn't it, when you go to the dentist? And we're talking about the crown again in the same language. So there you are. That's exactly what we're looking for. And it's more inclined than that. I talk about it being inclined, and inclined it is. That shows pretty much the same picture, and of course it is the same picture. And then we got the conceptual open pit. There you are. And as you know, I mean, these holes, they keep going out here into space, and they're all over the shop. But all of them are coming in with mineralization. And what that shows you is that this is much bigger again than we thought. We go out to the northwest, it's positive. We go out to the southeast, it's positive. And then there's a gap, and we get down to that whopping great anomaly. So this is growing by the day. My personal ambition is 500 million tons of rock for phase one. I'd like to think we've got 1 billion tons of rock. I don't know. The pit, we talk about going down to 600 meters. I think it'll probably go 650, 700 meters. And then you're getting into the Bingham Canyon sort of project. But that last comment there, all infrastructure capitalized. So think about this. There's this pit. It's a 30-year mine, 25-year mine, whatever it is. Probably 20 to 25 million ton a year. We say 15 there, but the way it's growing, 20, 25 million tons. When that pit's finished and depleted, you're left with a process plant, you're left with a tailings dam, you're left with full infrastructure, power and everything. So that ore now, the only cost against that ore which is deeper is its own capex and its own variable cost. So the economics of 0.25 is a totally different ballpark, because everything's paid for, and it's just basically marginal ore. And it's a sad thought, but there's not a person in this room, I don't think, will see the end of racecourse. Don't care, I don't know who the youngest person in the room is, but I don't think anybody will see. These things are 50, 70, 100-year projects, and I think hopefully this is where this one sits as well. Sobering thought, sobering thought, but none of us like to face our own mortality, but these things outlive everybody. They're big, and this is what the new copper age is looking for. Great big properties, what will last forever and produce good results on a regular basis for 50, 60, 70 years. Incidentally, when even me as a miner, if you talk to me about 650 meters deep, crikey, how much muck have you got to shift? The stripping ratio is only 4.3 to 1. That's a very modest stripping ratio, 4.3 to 1. That's the stripping ratio of this project, down to 600 meters. All good stuff to me, and that's what we're aiming for. I think will 2 million ton trigger the Anglo to approach us, or us approach Anglo? Will it be decision to mine? I think it's one of the same. I think I'm thinking they're in the same box, the decision or the 2 million ton. And who says 2 million tons it? I don't know. Who says 2 million tons is it? I don't know. 2 million tons of contained copper. I don't know. There's the drilling programs. You've all seen the RNSs, but there's a picture of some of the core. And it's pretty. And it's scary. Because you're relying on, we've got a new team of geologists round the clock now, and because of COVID, once they're in, they're staying. They're not going anywhere, because otherwise they shut us down. So the team has been absolutely fantastic. But it's your judgment versus your judgment versus your judgment when you look at a piece of core where there's 1%, 2%, 3%, no percent, 0.5% of chalcopyrite. The difference between 1% and 3% chalcopyrite is night and day. And you're looking at these little pitheads or little veins on a piece of core and trying to make an estimate. On the bulletin boards, they weren't happy when I threw the XRF away in phase 1. The XRF was costing us $7,500 a month to hire, because we hired the best type, and geologists don't come cheap in Australia, so that'd be about $20,000 a month, and they just couldn't keep up. And the return you get on the XRF anyway is you can't do anything with it, you can't form a resource for it, you can't do the calculation, so we just dumped it as a tool, and now we go on visual, and we try and train everybody to think exactly the same way. So Jeremy said, we reckon that your best samples are going to be nearly 2%. And we've got 1.8% in hole number 8. So they're getting very, very good. And they're getting the eye in quite nicely. So again, that's good news. Mozambique, again, we're not talking about Australia anymore. We're talking about nice palm trees. We're talking about nice ocean and not its own share of political problems and its own share of weather. The cyclones were absolutely awful last year. I think they had 3. And the Manica, fortunately, is inland on the border with Zimbabwe. And so it often gets the tail end, but boy, does it get rain. Might not get the destruction, but it gets the rain, which is so disruptive when you're trying to build plants. For the Fairbride, for example, when you're trying to make tailings dams. It's disruptive when you've got lots of mosquitoes around, what give you cerebral malaria. We've lost people, the Chinese lost people. They lose people to malaria, they lose people to COVID-19. It brings, it is a tough place to work, is Manica, really, really tough place to work. But again, not one month has gone by without us actually making money, surplus of income over expenditure at Manica. And of course, it's my wish that whatever we're doing on the production side pays for the drilling. And let's hope that is the case. But the Fairbride operation is coming into being. And there's the alluvial, that's the alluvial plant, and here's the Fairbride, there's them building the plant, some latest pictures. They're going on gangbusters, and they've got some additional external finance on a royalty basis. They should start the plant up this year, commercial production early next year. We're expecting a target for 7 years of 30,000 ounces a year. And that ought to make us between 5 and 6 million a year. Why did we do that? Why did we give the other side all that money? You will recall that this was just after the Chepica disaster, if you like, in South America. And I, for one, was reluctant and fearful of trying to, well, we just wouldn't have been able to do it, of raising the money to build that mine, because we had to take notice of the independent study. And I don't think Xtract was in a position to raise the 40 million that was required to build a mine. And it's not 40 million, but try and tell your nomad it's not 40 million. Try and tell a fund manager, try and tell an investment bank, try and tell the likes of Orion that it's not 40 million. So this to me was a good deal, a 23% share with a good team who we've got a lot of respect for in another life, doing work with them. And so I think hopefully it will work for us all. We've agreed in our agreement, Kate, is for reserving some cash flow to go exploring. I am convinced that nobody knows the real Manica story. The deepest hole I don't think is much deeper than 400 meters. We've got the most conservative geologist in the world, old Ed Slowey, and he said he's never been in such a small area with so many different styles of mineralization, Zak. They said nobody knows what's generating this lot. So that'll be the plan to go and drill. 6 or 7 million, that will keep, if it happens, that will keep us funded in Australia. Hopefully we won't be coming with a begging bowl, but you know, never say never in this business. Never say never. There you are, there's them putting it together. Just a couple of items, equipment, thickness and whatever there. Zambia, we all know about Zambia, they've just finished an election. Change of government in Africa is always worrying. Pretty worrying here when you look at that guy who basically can't comb his hair. I mean, so changes in government America wherever you go is always an issue. But Zambia's had their change, and there's been a lot of actions, you know, over the last 3 or 4 years. And by default, Zambia has almost nationalised its industry, not by design, but by default. Vedanta was kicked out. The World Bank took a dim view of that. I'm on the Zambian government's side. If I pay to get in KCM $25 million with the promise of spending $850 to develop the mine, and then go in and just take the low-hanging fruit, don't I deserve to be kicked out? Glencore walked away, smartest deal I've seen in my life. Government paid them £1 for NCCM, and they left a 1.5 billion loan account and a 14-year marketing agreement, sort of deal that you dream about. And obviously if you take on 1.5 billion, that goes into the national debt. So I think the new president is basically committed to normalising that, getting foreign investment in, getting the majors back in, and all the majors now are talking about, well, Zambia is not a bad place to be, and I think they're right. I love Zambia. It's the formative part of my career was spent there, and I really like the people. I like the way they do business, and I like the cheerful attitude to life when life is not always that simple in a place like Zambia. And of course, it was very good to me because that's where in our Kiwara we found the Sentinel mine, Zak, which is now the 20th biggest mine in the world, and we sold it for $265 million, and our shareholders had to wait 19 months from start to finish to get their money. So that was an enormous success, and that was Zambia. So let's hope that lightning strikes again. There's the Eureka. You'll see all sorts of things in Eureka. We can't. It takes a bit of figuring out. Lots of academia has talked about the IOCGs, iron ore, copper, gold. I'm not going to really give any theories on that. As far as I'm concerned, we're a little bit surprised. We found this steeply dipping ore body, very high grades. Then, oh dear, woe is me, because it was refractory. It was literally cooked. It just looked like slag from a smelter, Zak. It looks like slag. And so when it came up from the mantle there, it was actually cooked. And then below, fortunately, it is acid soluble. And then as we go away, if you see there, as we go away from that core there, and we go up here, it's probably 85% acid soluble up here. So we're very pleased. We're growing that. We've probably got about 700,000 tons of ore now. So that's certainly going to lead to a small operation. That will go to a nearby refinery, so we've got a deal there. And but the surprising element of this is that ore body, 2 or 3 meters thick, which comes at 45 degrees and don't fit, and with grades at 5%. Not many companies are reporting 5% copper in this world, so we're a bit beat there, and we're a little bit constrained by size. But Eureka should be a good contributor. At worst, to our monthly income, to enhance the value of Australia, if you like, and at best might lead to something yet to be, you know, to an IOCG, or there are those who say typical copper belt, but 5% is not very typical copper belt either, and 45-degree dip isn't typical copper belt, historical copper belt. Same story, there's our pitch, you can see it. Kalengwa was the biggest mine in Zambia in terms of copper production. Worked in the 70s, 2 million tons when I say big, but it worked at 9.5% copper. That's absolutely amazing. And over 25% was of the feed to Chibaluma was over 20% copper. We're looking for the same model in Brazant as it happens. And we've also got 2 million tons of dumps, and we've got waste rocks, which we intend to work. Challenged by remoteness and accessibility to smelters. So Eureka is quite frankly 2 hours away, so obviously Eureka sits a lot better. We're going to be talking not too soon about a couple of other projects. Our style now is not to commit. There's lots of little operations in Zambia which has been abandoned, or the guys have got no money to progress it, local entrepreneurs. So we go in, we offer to work it at our risk and do a profit share, and we probably end up doing more of the same. Again for the contribution to our drilling efforts in Australia. There's the board. There's Joel's in the room there. Alistair Ford's well known as a journalist in the business. Kel Tigerson worked for Rothschilds and was on Robert Friedland's boards, and the Ivanhoe and the Mongolia properties. He was on the boards of those. So Kel is a bit of an heavyweight in this business. And Peter Moy was kind of inherited and joined us and carried on with us from when we took it out of it being an oil company. So Peter gives independent wise counsel. And there's the number of shares which you all know about. We've probably got a value now of about 46 million. Today we've got to put 540. I think we've dropped back again to about 510. And this is going to be the nature of the beast. But I do hope that I've got 45 or 50 disciples who's going to actually believe the copper story, take Xtract out into the world and just link the two. What are we? Compelling investment case, but I think you know that. We're well on our way, I think, in Australia. We're building up our cash in Mozambique and Zambia. We've got a team who's been around and done it before. Eureka could justify this market cap. Don't talk about Australia and some of the other things. Eureka could do it. And we're well positioned for tomorrow's new world. And thank you very much. That's what it says here. And heartfelt thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you all. It really is. And that's the end of it, Zak. I don't know if I did. Just the hour, Colin. Sorry? Just an hour. Oh, I do apologise for that. But it's a lot of fun, and I do apologise. I hope I haven't bored you, but I've done my best not to. Thank you one and all for coming. I appreciate it.